You know, friends, one of the things we mentioned last night here at prayer meeting was the potential divisiveness that is arriving in our society, and indeed even where our church is involved. The potential divisiveness that can come from the whole issue of vaccines, who's been vaccinated, the status of it, how comprehensive are those vaccines, and whether or not we can actually prove that status with what they're beginning to call vaccine passports. The fact is, it's going to be a reality. Just about every province in our country has begun to take steps to institute that, and it's not just going to be for issues as broad as travel, as extraordinary as going to certain special places, but to eat in restaurants, to go to certain shopping malls or certain stores to shop, to even affecting people's work and employment qualifications, that people are going to have to be vaccinated. And so we started to talk about it last night at prayer meeting, and I want to continue to encourage you to, number one, recognize that Downsview Baptist Church is not immune from a serious division in our church family between the people who feel strongly on both ends of this question. I am very eager to see us come together as a church family and to show that we do love and care for one another, especially when we don't agree on something that's going to be as front and center as this whole issue of vaccines. And as we were praying about it even last evening, it occurred to me that in the 3rd chapter of Titus, he has something to say in terms of how we need to be determined to treat one another. The book of Titus, of course, was written to a man named Titus, who was essentially the pastor at the church on the island of Crete in the country of Greece. And not unlike 1st and 2nd Timothy, where it is written to the pastor of that church, this letter is written with a very pastoral concern in mind by and from the Apostle Paul towards Titus, so that he would understand that some of the fundamental attitudes that shape the fundamental actions of the people at the church really would be seasoned with grace and an understanding that agreement on action cannot be the basis for our fellowship. And in particular, actions that are superfluous to the immediate call of Christians to love one another, to reflect and present the gospel, and to be the kind of people who boast that their lives boast only in the cross, as we've been speaking about from Galatians 6:14 on Sunday mornings. And so in Titus chapter 3, as Paul's bringing this book to a close, he says to remind the people there to be submissive to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, and to be ready for every good work. So of course that has to do with directly the issue of where the government and the governing authorities have rights and opportunities to direct us and call us to submit to them. But the next verse broadens the scope and broadens the lens, if you will. It still has governmental authorities in mind, but it says in verse 2, speak evil of no one. And in the first immediate context, in terms of how easy targets politicians are as we're in the midst of a federal election, don't speak evil of any of them. But I really do think that the lens is bigger than that, because speak evil of no one. Avoid quarreling, be gentle, and to remind them to show perfect courtesy towards all people. So it's not just an issue that applies specifically to governing authorities, but to all people. And brothers and sisters at Downview, I am eager, and not to sound corny about it, but very zealously wanting to plead with you to regard our church family as people that we are determined to treat with absolute, perfect courtesy. And that doesn't begin with how we speak to them. It doesn't even begin as the way we speak about them. It begins with our heart attitude towards them, which begins in many ways by how we think about them. And you know, there's a conference going on right now in terms of worship singing, and one of the gentlemen, Gavin Ortlund, who I believe he's a senior pastor of, I think the church is called Emmanuel Baptist in Nashville, Tennessee. There was a post that he encouraged us with. He said, listen, in our polarizing culture, there is increasing pressure to love your tribe and to demonize the opposition. One way to reflect Jesus is this: never withhold love or friendship out of fear of association. Be kind to everyone and utterly disregard the sociological fallout. Did you hear what he's saying there? He's saying those who are in the anti-vax tribe or crowd versus those who are in the pro-vax crowd or tribe often are going to feel a pressure to love those within our tribe and demonize the other side. He said the call of the gospel is to never withhold love or friendship out of fear of association. Well, we don't like those people because, that's what they're like. And so we can't touch them. We can't go near them. We can't associate with them. We can't worship with them. We can't serve with them. At the very least, we can't sit with them. We don't talk with them on Sunday mornings. We avoid those people. We're not like them. Oh, brothers and sisters, when you in a moment think we're immune to that at Downsview Baptist Church, you're just not seeing things with the lens of the leadership, what we can see happening at the church already. We can see little bits and pieces of this. You and I, how we've heard little shots about each other and little easy pokes towards each other, throwing literal verbal stones about other people. Friends, a call in this text is to treat one another with absolute courtesy towards everyone. Oh, friends, that means that we're going to check our hearts and realize the idolatries of our own preferences that are in there, that we think are good excuses for disobeying, sinfully disobeying a call like this text has for us. I have got to guard my heart all the time. And sometimes you guard the things that are taken into your hearts. Limit your time on social media. Guard your hearts against the entertainment source that calls it news. Guard yourself against every single column in the newspaper or reading every single post of the people you admire on your social media accounts, or the kind of things you're listening to on the broadcast news, on the radio or on the television, whatever that is. Check yourself, even if you're used to doing that. Don't be afraid to block someone on your social media accounts if it's just poison for your soul, especially if you like it, but you wouldn't repeat it on Sunday morning. It's one of my diagnostics myself. So brothers and sisters, I want to encourage us at Downsview, be in prayer that the attitudes towards one another would be seasoned with grace, as the book of Hebrews says, so that our lives would be boasting examples of lives that boast in the cross, that uphold, exult in, and reflect the beauty of the cross. And that we would do so by being determined to treat every single person, especially those folks that disagree with you about this issue, treat them with perfect courtesy, courteous, respect, gentleness, graciousness, so that the love that Christ has already loved us with would be the kind of love with which we love one another. Pray to that end, would you, Downsview? All right, cheers.